everybody. Welcome to our Common Good City Farm leaf lesson for this week. Today on Instagram Live we're going to make some applesauce, and I'm Miss Emily with the Leaf Program, and I'm here today with my niece and special helper Thula.
Hello.
Alright, so today we are at Thula's house and we are going to make homemade applesauce. So before we do that though, I did want to talk a little bit about apples because we always like to talk about apples. We love to talk about the fruits and vegetables we eat in the leaf class. We like to learn a little bit about them before we eat them and cook with them. So on the farm we do grow some apples. These are 2 apples that were grown at Common Good on the farm. We get a little bit of a small variety that's kind of got some yellow and some red on it. So apples are a member of the rose family, which is the same family that pears, peaches, plums, and cherries. They're all in the rose family. And although we don't know what variety these apples are from the farm, we do know that there are over 2,500 varieties of apples grown just in the U.S. And only about 100 of those are sold for commercial sale. So you might not know that many names of apples, but there are that many different ones growing. So we also, we've had the apple trees on our farm for a while, so they are growing fruit now. A standard apple tree takes about 8 to 10 years before it makes fruit, but there are dwarf apple trees that can produce fruit in just 3 to 5 years. And then in the springtime, when the apple trees blossom, they start out a pink color, and then they turn to white. So you have beautiful white apple blossoms. Doesn't that sound pretty?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then a little bit about what you get when you eat an apple. Apples are fat-free, sodium-free, cholesterol-free. You get the most nutrition when you eat like a fresh whole apple. You get like lots of fiber from the peel. You also get vitamin C, and it has many different phytochemicals. But even when you don't eat a fresh whole apple and you cook it into something, it's a good way to make a nice homemade treat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so we have a bunch of kinds of apples in front of us today. As you can see, we've got some yellows, some greens, some red, some mixed colors. What's your favorite kind of apple, Thula?
Honey crisps are my favorite.
Excellent. So today in our applesauce we're going to use a mixture, and we recommend that, but if you only have one kind of apple, you can just use whatever you have. But we're going to use some of the ones from the farm mixed with some of the ones that Thula picked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go apple picking?
At,
The orchard near your house?
yeah, it's the...
That's okay. I think it's called Susquehanna. We're up
Yeah,
here
it
in
is.
Maryland, so that's where we went.
It's the Susquehanna Orchard.
Awesome. Oh, I see someone said we just went apple picking. Awesome. So you had fun doing that too. All right. So that's one more thing I wanted to share about apples is when we make our applesauce, we're going to take off the peels and take off the core, but we are going to cut around the core. But for this example, I wanted to show you on this apple that there's seeds in there, and that's why we cut around them. But if you cut it down the center, what shape do you get in the middle, Thula? Do you know?
Like a flowerish star.
Exactly. So let me show you that. We got a cool little star because that's the way the seeds form in there, and it grows. Hi, everybody. All right. So let's jump into making the applesauce and talking about the applesauce, right?
Okay.
So first, before any cooking project, you need to wash your hands really well. Have you washed your hands?
Of course.
Yes, we did that already. Alright, and then let's go over the ingredients and equipment that we're going to need to make our recipe for applesauce. So what's the first ingredient?
You would need an apple musher to smush it down for the end.
Exactly, and you would need a vegetable or apple peeler. You'll also need a cutting board and knife.
You can also use your little kid's one.
Yeah, you want to show them the kids' knife that we're going to use today?
This one.
Excellent. And you'll also want measuring spoons.
There are some.
And something to stir with. And you can use your kids' cooking kit spatula. That's right. You'll also want a pot with a lid. So for applesauce, you are going to need the stove. So this is a recipe where you're going to need a grown-up in your house to help you.
If a kid is.
If a kid is doing it. If you're already a grown-up, we trust you to use the stove, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is our pot with our lid that we're going to use.
And here's some already cut up apples.
Yeah, we got a head start so that this doesn't take too long to show you. Alright, along with our apples ingredient, we will also need some honey. You want to show the honey? or you can use maple syrup instead. We will also, oh yeah, we have some maple syrup too in case we wanted to use that. And we're just going to use a little bit of extra sweetener, not a lot because apples have lots of sweetness on their own. We'll also need a little bit of water. Show the water.
Here's some water.
And some cinnamon. Yeah.
Some grounded cinnamon.
Exactly. And we'll need lemon juice, or you can use apple cider vinegar, but I have a fresh lemon here, so we'll squeeze some of that juice out at the end when we need to get to that part.
And here is some already finished applesauce.
Exactly. So that's what we're aiming to get to at the end of this process, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the first thing you got to do is you got to take your apples and peel and chop them. So I'm going to move this a little bit to the side here so that you guys can see what we're doing. So we'll just do this one apple as an example. We got a nice big green apple. So if you're an older kid, or you know how to use a peeler safely, you can do that, but sometimes it's easiest to let the adult in the house helping with the recipe do the peeling. So I'm going to peel this for Thula. You want to get your cutting board and knife ready in front of you?
Okay.
All right. So we're going to just take some of the peel off. It's okay if you leave a little bit because that's extra fiber, like I said, or you could leave all the peel on if that's what you prefer. Really, this is a very flexible recipe and you can make it the way that you want to. So then I'm also going to do this part where we're going to cut right where the stem comes out. We're going to cut to the side of that so that we don't get the core and the seeds. So I'm going to cut a big slice.
I'll take that.
There you go. And now Thula's going to slice it up into about 2-inch chunks. The smaller you cut it, the faster your applesauce will cook. So we're going to cut ours into just kind of medium-sized chunks. I'll keep cutting this one off of the core. And what you can do with your core and your peels is you can put them in your compost. So we have compost here. Do you compost at your house?
Of course.
Yeah, and we compost at the farm. So we can save these peels and core for that. But also you can also chew around the core and eat the little pieces of apple that didn't come off cleanly. You don't want to waste any of it. Beautiful. All right, you ready for another piece? Or we'll put those in our pot.
Yeah, I forgot it wasn't here.
Go ahead and put them in, and then we'll give you another piece. Here you go. Do you have any special technique for cutting it up, Thula?
So like you can cut it in slices like this and then just turn it in front of you and then just cut like, not like in the middle, but like to the side so it like turns into little pieces so it's a little faster.
Exactly. And we also keep our fingers away from the knife, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can always bend your fingers. We call it the bear claw, so that you make sure you're not close to your hands when you're cutting. All right, we just got a couple more chunks. Thanks again, everyone who's been joining us. If you do have any questions, we'll try to catch them at the end. We're a little far away from the phone to answer anything right now, but we'll look at it at the end and see if you have any questions for us. But thank you for joining us. Oh, let me tip it for you. There you go. All right, one last piece. All right, so for our small recipe, this is how many apples we're using. This is about 4 to 5 medium apples. You can use fewer if you have really big apples, but this will be our medium amount of applesauce that we're gonna make. And so to go with this amount of apples, all nice and chopped up, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in front of you and get ready to add the other ingredients. All right, so next we need to add 3 tablespoons of water. So can you find your tablespoon?
The big one is always the tablespoon.
All right, and you can double check because what does it say on it?
1 TBL.
Perfect. So we're going to need 3 of these. So why don't I pour and then you dump them into the pot? Want to count them?
There's 1.
All right.
2.
Great.
And 3.
Perfect. So we've got our water. Next, we're going to need 1 tablespoon of our honey.
Okay.
So we'll use the same measuring spoon. Do you want to squeeze or you want me to do it?
Sure, I can squeeze.
All right, I'll hold the spoon for you.
And sometimes you can use your spatula to get some honey off of there that sticks onto there.
Yeah, we might need to do that. Fill it up to the top. Perfect. All right.
There's 1 scoop.
All right. You want to scrape it with a spatula? All right. We get our sticky honey out of there.
Sticky. Always had it to be sticky.
And then you can like lay the spatula just in the pot so it doesn't get the honey on anything. And then what we need next is our cinnamon. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. So can you find the teaspoon?
Of course.
Perfect. Yep. All right, and then the cinnamon. All right. So sometimes it's a little tricky to get cinnamon out of a shaker because it has all these big holes and this spoon is not that big. If you have a smaller measuring spoon, you could dip it in there.
It's actually little holes with lots of holes around it.
That's true. So if you had a different shape of a measuring spoon, you could just dip it in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the shaking part and just measure it that way. I think it won't fit in, so I think I'll pour it in for you. But just be gentle because it could come out fast. In fact, we're not doing it this time, but it could be smart to do it not over top of your pan. In case you poured too much, then you could brush it off and it wouldn't all be in your dish. All right, so now we can use our stirrer, our spatula, to stir all the ingredients together. Good job. I'm gonna get that honey mixed in throughout with all of our apples. And the water will just make sure that it doesn't burn in the pan and it'll just help it all cook a little bit faster and steam together. Right. Good job. You want to show everybody what it looks like? I'll take this for you.
Here
So
is
you
what
can
it
tip
looks
it?
like.
Yeah, so all the cinnamon and honey and water is sort of spread out.
And you might be able to see the cinnamon.
Yeah, it smells really good. Does it smell good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty good.
If you don't love cinnamon, you can make this without, but we like it in this house, right? So then you're going to put your lid on your pan, and you're going to put it on medium-high heat, and you're going to let it simmer. So you want that to simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. And when you check back, you can sort of poke them with a spoon or your stirrer and just see if they seem like they'll be soft enough to mash up.
Or a toothpick, right?
A toothpick would work. If it sort of falls right out of the toothpick, then you know your apples are soft enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we have here is some apples that have already been cooking for 15 to 20 minutes. So you can see they've kind of changed color, gotten a lot darker, and they are ready for the next step. So we're just going to jump right ahead over the cooking step, and we're going to show you what to do next. Do you remember what we do next?
Yep, you mush it up.
Exactly. So we got to use our masher. If you don't have a masher that looks like this, you might have one that's kind of like a squiggle. Those are like more used for bean mashing. Or you can just kind of use a spoon or big wooden spoon and do the same job. But this is kind of fun if you have one. You can also, if you want a really smooth applesauce, put it in a food processor. But the chunky part is kind of nice part of it anyway. All right, while you do the mashing, I'm gonna squeeze out some lemon juice. So at the end of the recipe, after cooking it, that's when you add a little bit of acid to help counteract all those sweet apples and that sweet honey. And so I'm just gonna squeeze the lemon by hand into this so that we can measure some of it out. If you don't want to use lemon or you don't have a fresh lemon, apple cider vinegar also works. You just use a little bit less of it. But we'll put our whole recipe up on the Instagram story when we post this, so you can see exactly how much of each thing we used. But again, remember, you can definitely double it, you can make changes. It's a very flexible recipe.
probably too a lot loud.
That's okay. All right. So we're gonna want to do basically just 2 teaspoons of lemon juice.
I'll get my teaspoon ready real quick.
Okay.
1 teaspoon.
All right. Well, actually, let's scoop it in there so we don't get any seeds.
Okay. Sorry, that one.
Oh, that's okay. You're doing great. Perfect. No seeds. Dump it in. And then another teaspoon. Any seeds? Great.
Nope.
Dump it on in. So 2 teaspoons, but you can again change that based on your own taste. All right, and then you want to stir it together.
All right.
Or here, scrape this off, or well, we can whack it one more time, even though it's loud. All right, go ahead. Stir in that lemon juice. All right, and at this point, when you stir it, if you see some parts that need more mashing, you can mash it more. Do you think it needs more?
Maybe this one.
Yeah, maybe we'll mash. Sometimes the pieces that have a peel still on them might need a little extra effort to mash them up. Try to shake this off less loudly. All right. Should we show them what it looks like?
Sure. You take that.
I'll take this.
Here's what it looks like.
So this is our final product. Try to catch the light for you. It's kind of nice and chunky applesauce. Or this example we had before, this is what it looks like if you put it in the food processor. So you can make a homemade version that still has that smooth texture that you'd get from a jar. All right, so you can definitely serve this warm, or you can let it chill and be cold. Ours is cold because we cooked these apples earlier. It's also nice to let your apples cool a little bit before you go to the mashing. So you cook them for 15 to 20 minutes, but then you also let them cool a little bit before you mash them up. You ready to taste it?
Sure.
All right, let's get some applesauce. All right. Mmm. That's really good.
Yeah.
You did a great job. Awesome. All right, well, I hope everybody makes some applesauce at home. It's the right time of year for that. Nice fall weather. Thank you for joining us on our Instagram Live. Let me check real quick. We'll just see if we have any questions for us. Right, all right. So, we do these Instagrams, although unfortunately we don't have Thula every week, but we do these every Sunday at 4:30, and we are often out there on the farm, so thank you everyone who joined us today, and we hope you'll join us for next week. I think next week we will have Nate from the LEAF program who will be teaching us something on the farm. You want to say goodbye, Thula?
Bye.
All right, thanks everybody.